The Ford Transit van is flexibility on wheels. There are so many things you can do with this van. Do you want a bulkhead to separate from the front from the back? Do you want to upfit it as a camper van? The sky's the limit for this transit van. The one in behind me here is the medium roof configuration. So for the 2024 model, you still have the low, medium, or the high roof, and the regular, long, or the extended length. On top of that, it's available as the 150, the 250, and the 350, single or dual rear wheel, and then it also has the option for either rear wheel drive or all-wheel drive. There are so many ways you can configure this van. And that's why it's so important to work with a Ford rep that can really help you out with figuring out the build that you need for your specific needs. I'll touch on the differences in the 150, 250, etc. in a second, but let's dive into this 2024 Transit and see what this thing has to offer. As I mentioned, you're still going to find the Transit rear-wheel drive standard with the all-wheel drive system available optionally. And that's going to depend on if you're in the regular Transit or the eTransit. Or you can find an eTransit video down in the description of this video. On top of that, there are a few new wheel choices that are available for the 2024 model year, but you're still only looking at these little 16-inch wheels, regardless of the style that you go for. There aren't a ton of differences from the 2023 to the 2024 Transit van. You are still looking at that tiny little 4-inch screen standard inside of the regular Transit. The eTransit is going to be the larger 12-inch screen, but I'll touch on the importance of the 12-inch once we get inside. On top of that, the big one, the auto start-stop system, is just no longer available in the Transit whatsoever. So Ford's completely removed that from the vehicle. This Transit van is fairly stripped down. Like, it does have a few extras, but most notably on the inside. But you will find things inside of the Transit van, like the forward sensing system. There's the option for a front-facing camera, so you'd have a full 360 camera. This thing also has the option for enhanced park assist. I would definitely recommend, if you're going to be using this thing as a delivery van, getting the forward sensing system, maybe even that 360 camera. It's going to make it way easier for delivery drivers in order to use this thing. Like, trust me on this one. For the extra couple $1,000, it's going to save you a boatload of headaches for people complaining about running into things accidentally, because it is really difficult to see what's going on around you, especially with that smaller 4-inch infotainment system. All right, underneath the hood of the Ford Transit van, the engines year over year, 23 to 24, are the exact same. So it's either a 3.5 liter V6, a 3.5 liter turbocharged V6, or you've got the eTransit, which is a beast in and of itself. There's also the option for dual batteries, dual alternators, just depending on what your needs are for your build. But the 3.5 liter V6 that comes standard with this thing is respectable. 275 horsepower, 260 pound-feet of torque. And then when you get into the turbocharged version, 310 horsepower and 400 pound-feet of torque. So which way you go is ultimately going to depend on what you need out of your vehicle. But you've got easy access in order to fill up your fluid and check and change your oil. Just want to make sure you're regularly maintaining the vehicle to get the best possible life out of your ride. And the Ford warranty for the Transit van is the same across every Ford vehicle. So your basic is a 3-year, 36,000 mile, 60,000 kilometer. Powertrain is going to be a 60,000 mile or 100,000 kilometer for 5 years. That's pretty respectable at the same time. But you just want to make sure, like I said, just make sure you're maintaining your vehicle, bring it in for regularly scheduled maintenance, perform oil changes as necessary to get the best possible life out of your van. One thing that I would definitely recommend inside of the Transit van, outside of the forward sensing system, is the reverse park sensing system as well. Again, backing out of spaces, pulling into spaces, it makes it infinitely easier for delivery drivers. Inside of the low roof, the backup camera is going to be down low. Inside of the medium roof and the high roof, the backup camera is up high. So that's something you have to take into account there as well. The Transit van does have the flexibility to tow, and you've got different towing options and towing numbers that are going to be dependent on which version of the vehicle that you're in. Are you in the 150, the 250, the 350? Okay, and then along the back, doors that do have the flexibility to pop open nicely to 90 degrees, but you've got the little unlock on both sides. And then pull like this crazy swing door instead. Now, this is the interior protection package that you're going to find inside of the Transit van. So you've got your neoprene finished walls and then flooring. That's also got, you can also see a little bit underneath there as well. It's pretty solid. This is the 148 wheelbase and medium roof. I'm 6 feet tall. Yeah. So I can't fully stand up in the medium roof. So if your plan is to make this thing into something like a camper van, your best bet, honestly, would be to look at the high roof instead. High roof, maybe the extended length to get the most possible bang for your buck for the size of the vehicle. Payload numbers for the Transit van are all over the place. Are you in the Transit 150, the 250, or the 350? It's funny that Ford's website doesn't really outline the big differences between them, but they are fairly substantial. So the differences between the 1, the 2, and the 350, there's nothing to do with the body whatsoever. You can still get the regular, the long, or the extended length, and the low, medium, or high roof in all of the van configurations. The big difference is the gross vehicle weight rating, so GVWR. And one big difference is the total allowable payload. So inside of the Transit 150, pretty much maxing out, I think, at 3,600 and change pounds. The 250 is a little over 4,000 pounds. And then the 350 is 5,114 pounds. So that is a pretty big swing. So if you're kind of nickel and diming payload at the 150, you're probably safer to go up to a 2 or a 350. Because if you're ever in an accident and you're pulling too much or you've got too much payload in there, you're not looking at a good time from an insurance perspective, and then also like from a ticket perspective, because you've overloaded your van. So if you're gonna have a ton of stuff, if you're upfitting for a camper and you need the extra weight, go for the 2 or the 350. Again, that's the big difference between the 150, 250, and 350. It's got nothing to do with the wheels. The body size of the configuration are all available in the 1, 2, or 350. The 350 is going to give you the option for dual rear wheel if you need it, and then that max payload. So if payload is really your thing, you need the maximum amount, you're going 350. I just don't know why Ford doesn't make it more obvious on their website, but that's the big difference. Now this one doesn't have the available bulkhead, but you will find the bulkhead available as an option inside of the Transit van. Bulkhead is nice because it separates the front from the back, but Line-X has some pretty good aftermarket options. There are some other upfitters that you could look at if you needed to go that route as well. Now, obviously looking, single sliding door. The 2024 doesn't have the option for power sliding in the passenger van. And there are a series of different mirrors that are available. So this one features turn signals, and then you've got this glass that's power, this glass that's going to be manual to move around on the bottom. Different options for length and things like that. Filling up fuel inside of this thing is along the driver's door on the inside there. So you've got a capless system, and you could fill up with that door closed, which is nice, just to make sure that the van's keeping heat and air conditioning trapped if necessary. And one thing you're never going to find anywhere published are going to be fuel economy numbers for the Transit van. And the reason why is because it's a commercial vehicle, and with all the thousands of possibilities for upfitting options and things like that, the commercial vans are technically exempt from having to have those requirements. So you're not going to find published numbers for any Transit van, unfortunately. It would be nice, but I don't think I've ever seen many people even publish their numbers online and in forums. But what I'll do, I'll keep an eye out and I'll update the description of this video. So if I come across some numbers that people have put out, I'll make sure to let you know. But one thing about payload inside of this thing as well, so you can see yellow door sticker. So if you're in a van or even in a truck and you're not sure what the payload is for that specific vehicle, you can find it just along the door sticker there. So in this one, you can go up to 3,351 pounds. On the inside here, simple, nothing crazy along the door. Unlock lock buttons, a little bit of door storage, cup holders, figure out what's going on with your side mirrors, increase or decrease the brightness of the cluster screen, and then figure out what's going on with your lamps. The auto hold is there as well. You've got the electronic parking brake, some cup holders, and then down, your hood release. The steering wheel inside of this thing is going to be manual telescoping with the release just in between there. And then there's always a few different options for the seats inside of the van. So you've got mostly, for the most part, you're going to find just 2-way adjustable, but then you've got the 10-way power adjustable as well. So this one here is going to adjust your backrest, slide the seat forwards and backwards. That's really about it. There's not too much to these Transit seats when you go just for the basic seat itself, but there's a crazy amount of space inside. Like, ridiculous amount of space inside of the van here. The seat, definitely not the most comfortable, but that's like where you have the option for the upgraded seat cushions and protectors and things like that. Like there are a lot of different aftermarket options that are available. But what can I point out here? Nothing too crazy. Let's do a quick little van startup. You've got your base key there, unlock, lock button, door release, horn or panic, old school flip. Get in there. What? How is that not? What? Oh, there we go. Just needed her to click. I swear, I've done this before. Like, why aren't you turning on? Right, there we go. That's ridiculous. That's like the hardest I've ever worked in order to start up a keyed ignition before. Ridiculous. One-handedness. All right, so you can see there you've got your basic cruise control, volume control along this side, buttons to go through the little cluster screen there, answer, hang up on a phone call, change songs, radio stations, and then there's also teeny little voice command prompt. But the voice command prompt with this little screen is only going to turn on your Siri or Google Assistant. So with this smaller screen, it's not going to give you the full capability that the Sync 3 or the Sync 4 screen will. But if you want to walk through like how to use the steering wheel, all the steering wheel buttons, the cluster, or even the little infotainment system, you'll find those walkthroughs down in the description of this video. But this little screen, this is why you don't want to go for it. Like, look at how ridiculous that is. So trying to back this thing up, like, yes, this thing has the reverse sensing system, which is useful, but I mean, there is nothing to that little screen. Like at a very minimum, you should go for the larger 8-inch Sync 3 screen, but I mean, budget it out for the larger Sync 4. I think it's like an extra $1,000, $1,500, which I mean, over the course of 5 years is what, like $150, $200? Like it's not really much. I would definitely recommend going that route. Like go for ideally the Sync 4 screen. It's a 12-inch screen instead of this smaller 4-inch, like minimum the Sync 3 screen, but ideally just push for that Sync 4 screen instead. I did have someone mention that their Sync 4 screen caused their build to get pushed by like, I think it was 2 years almost. So that's something else you have to take into account. The build times for transit vans are long sometimes, and it depends on the overall build that you're looking at. So if you know you want to get a van, make sure you put in your order nice and early because it can take quite a little bit of time depending on how you spec this thing out. But outside of that, like this is basic. It's simple. You've got basic controls for the little screen. You've got your park sensing system, so that beeping that you get as you back up. Series of selectable drive modes, slippery, tow haul mode, mud ruts mode, etc. But you're going to play with the driving dynamics. And then there's also traction control. Toggle that bad boy on or off. On top of that, you can turn on your side view mirrors, so there's heated side mirrors, 4-way blinkers. You've got power points, 12-volt power point up there. And then you've also got park reverse neutral drive, but there's also a dedicated manual mode. So this thing doesn't have a low gear, but if you wanted to essentially work as a manual transmission, you've got that flexibility. So your plus minus along the shifter there instead. There's some cup holders there. And then flooring, nice and simple. Ooh, didn't notice that before. Little power point built right into the seat. That's useful. And that's a 400 watt down there too. Glove box there, lockable. It's got actually a pretty good amount of space in there. It's nice. On top, you can see a few more power points. So there's another USB, another 12-volt power point up there. Teeny little bit of storage. And this thing has a little bit of storage along the top there too. Now, one other thing to point out is that the visor in this thing doesn't necessarily have a mirror. So there's no mirror built right into the visor in some versions, but you would be able to find that available as an option. And you've got a little receipt holder there as well. This thing, I don't think it extends out. Yeah, you don't even need to extend that bad boy. That just blocks everything. Oh, yeah, that could be hitting your face. But outside of that, the base transit by itself, which is what this is, like it's, like I said, fairly stripped down. Outside of the interior protection package, there aren't really many things added onto this van. But unfortunately, this one's sold. I can't take it for a spin, but I mean, if you've ever been inside of a van before, it's straightforward. The bigger these things are, the harder they're going to be to maneuver. And that's where things like the safety systems, like the 360 camera, the forward sensing system, and that larger infotainment system really come into play. Because trying to reverse with that little screen is really tricky. So I would say, like, at a very minimum, if it's being used as a delivery van, make sure that you go for the forward, the reverse sensing system. The 360 camera is ideal as well as that larger screen. If you're a delivery fleet manager, you will save your employees so much headache and hassle by going that route. And then even if you're looking at doing an upfit for a camper van, having that extra technology can be useful at the same time. There still is the option for the Transit Trail, which I still haven't actually seen in person, but I'll make sure that when I do, I will put a review video together for that Transit Trail van. And that was a look at the 2024 Ford Transit. You can find a build link for this specific van down in the description, the contact details for Formula Ford, and all the tech walkthrough videos down there as well. But if you found this video useful, give it a thumbs up, subscribe if you haven't already, and until I see you next time, take care.